Okay, so hello there, my name's Jayaka, welcome to the London Buddhist Centre. In a minute or so we're going to actually start the class more fully. Yes, we are coming live from the London Buddhist Centre here in East London. And well, it's great to have you along. I don't know whether you've been to one of these sessions before or not. I'm used to teaching classes full of people. At the moment, we've got Priyavajra over here who's going to be telling us a story a bit later on, and we've got Britta who's operating all the controls. So that's how we're able to get out to you this evening. Obviously, we can't have people here at the centre at the moment, or we can at some. We've got some small classes running, but at the moment, basically, a lot of our things are online at the moment. So yes, a bit of a rainy day here in East London. It's been very, very windy over the last few days. So when you're tuning in, maybe you could just send us a message just to let us know where you're coming from. That would be really helpful. It's really good to know when people are listening and who's in the audience. So let's make a start. So welcome again, and a special welcome if it's your first time tuning in on the LBC YouTube channel. My name's Jayaka, and this is our storytelling evening, a Thursday evening storytelling evening. It's been going on for quite a few weeks. We've been bringing you all sorts of good stories from the Buddhist tradition. There are always lots of good stories from the Buddhist tradition. I really love the stories that we hear from the Buddha's life. And this evening, Priyavajra is going to be telling us a story of Mahakasyapa. I'll let him fill out the story. But before that, we're going to do a short meditation. And then we'll have the talk from Priyavajra, or the storytelling session. We'll talk about Mahakasyapa, who's one of the Buddha's disciples. Then there'll be a break, a very short break, just for about 5 minutes, just for us all to have a leg stretch. And then again, we'll come back with a very, very short meditation, just to help us settle after the break. And then Priyavajra will say a few more things, and then we're going to have some questions. So during the session, we really want you to take the story in, and if you have any questions, if there's anything that isn't clear, then do use the text on the box on the YouTube page, and Britta will try and communicate the questions to us, and then we'll try and explore the questions, explore the material a bit more. But storytelling in the Buddhist tradition is very, very important. So for the first 500 years after the Buddha died, the Buddhist tradition was an oral tradition. And there were these great lists of all these different teachings that the Buddha gave, and they were all put together in these lists, and often the monks would just communicate these lists. And they would memorise them, and this is how the Buddhist tradition come down to us. But also how the Buddhist tradition has come down to us is in the form of stories. And we all know stories, don't we? I remember being at primary school, and there used to be an hour a week or half an hour a week where the teacher would read from a storybook, and it'd be fantastic. I mean, I never really liked the schoolwork anyway. But I really, really used to enjoy the storytelling. And in the storytelling, there's lots and lots of wisdom that can be communicated, and this is very, very traditional for society to communicate its values and its history and what's important in this way. And I think we're going to be having some more of that this evening. So that's a bit of an introduction. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite you to sit comfortably. You're welcome to sit on a chair or on cushions, or meditation cushions if you've got them. And we're going to do a practice of the mindfulness of breathing. If you're new or you're not very well practiced at that, don't worry, I'm going to give a few pith instructions which will help you on your way. So be confident that you can participate in this meditation practice. So just making yourself comfortable, settling down, finding your cushions, and planting your bottom down on your cushions or your chair and just really settling down. And magically the lights fade down here in the LBC Shrine Room. So making sure you're comfortable. And when you're ready, just closing your eyes. And first of all, let's just take a few deeper breaths. So really filling out the diaphragm, the chest and the belly with the breath. So the breath will help us come in contact with the body. And trying to feel the breath low in the body. So seeing if you can feel the breath just below the belly button and maybe 2 or 3 inches into the torso, into the belly. And now just feeling the weight of your body. So gravity is pushing down on our head, on our shoulders. We can't quite feel that though, we're used to that, aren't we? But we can feel the tension where the body makes contact with the chair or the cushion. So just feeling those sensations. And we can do that while we're still following the breath. And feeling into the legs. So sometimes the thighs can be tense, so just trying to relax the thighs. And now just coming up to the shoulders. And just really letting the shoulders drop down from the ears. Letting go of all that you've been carrying today or this week. And now just relaxing the face, particularly around the eyes. So the eyes can often carry lots of tension. So really softening the eyes. softening the jaw and the tongue. And just having a sense of how you are right now. How's your mood been today? Have you been happy or anxious, frustrated or angry? Maybe that's still affecting you, so just check how you are. And bringing a kindly awareness to that. We may not be feeling what we want to feel, but whatever that is, we're just bringing a kindly attention. And we're going to do a 2-stage mindfulness of breathing. So beginning to follow the breath. And just letting go of all your expectations of how this meditation should be, how it should go. And really just making it a practice of curiosity of the breath. So 2-stage mindfulness of breathing. So just following the breath, maybe in the chest or the belly, and just relaxing your body. So really taking an interest in the breath. And if you have any strong thoughts or emotions, just breathe them in and let them go on the out breath. So you may notice the breath deepen or become smoother as the body relaxes. We just simply enjoy those experiences. As the body breathes, you can also just noticing the warmth in the hands, and in the belly. So keeping the crown of the head up, the chest open, so that the body can breathe with ease. So if you find it helpful, you can just now bring your attention up to your nostrils and just feeling the breath moving across the tip of the nose or the top of the lip. Or if you find that disturbs your meditation, your concentration, then just come back to your belly. Always having a broad sense of the body and its warmth and its ease. Trying to detect the subtleties of the breath with the tip of the nose. So we're looking for enjoyment from within that is connected to the breath. Looking for any ease in the body, looking for relaxation. And just for the last couple of minutes of the meditation, we're just going to let go of all the effort that we've been making. And again, letting go of any expectations of how we should be feeling right now. Just sitting with however we are. Okay, so hopefully that's helped us prepare a bit for the storytelling session. It's always good to do some meditation before we listen to something that we're about to listen to now. So Priyavajra is going to come and sit here in a moment. Just want to say a few things about Priyavajra. I've known Priyavajra for about 20 years. When I first come along, Priyavajra just got ordained. And he went to live at Vajrasana, our retreat centre in Suffolk. And he lived there for 6 months while they converted the farm into a retreat centre. Some of you know it's been done up again since, so it is quite a long time ago that Priyavajra was living there. Then he come back to the centre. I lived with him for a while, probably a year or two, so I know him quite well, and I've done lots and lots of work with him. And he's a very, very good speaker. He can really elucidate what he wants to talk about. He has been a teacher, a professional teacher, and he's a very, very good speaker. So I'm really, really looking forward to what he's got to say this evening about Mahakasyapa. So here's Priyavajra.
Okay, thank you very much, Jayika. Thank you for the introduction. I hope I can live up to your expectations. It's a bit daunting, but also thank you for the meditation. I really enjoyed it. It's amazing. Every time I do the mindfulness of breathing, and I do it almost every day, I'm reminded of how powerful the breath is and how grounded it can make me. It's a very important practice. So, yes, so I'm going to talk about Mahakasyapa. Mahakasyapa is perhaps not that well known, but he's one of the foremost disciples of the Buddha and a slightly mysterious figure. So it's a very good person to talk about. But before I start talking about Mahakasyapa, I want to get you to use your imagination. So I want you to imagine that you're living in northeast India, or what is now northeast India, around the time of the Buddha. So that's 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago. So you're living in a little village. And it's quite common around this time for people to come visiting the villages, sages and mystics and all sorts of people travel from village to village. Sometimes they bring news, sometimes they entertain you, sometimes they talk about enlightenment, they can do all sorts of things. Anyway, somebody visits your village and they tell you that there is somebody living in not that far away, a couple of 100 miles away, and this man is a Buddha. That is, he's an enlightened being. And you think, wow, there's an enlightened being living a couple of 100 miles away. That's amazing. I must go and see him. But of course, it's okay to say I must go and see him. You know, these days, a couple of 100 miles, it's nothing, is it? You hop on a train and you'll be there in a couple of hours. You know, but 2,500 years ago, we're talking about something a bit different than that. It's going to be a journey on foot. You'd have to be very rich to afford a horse. There are robbers out there, there are thieves out there, there's jungle to be navigated, there's wild plains. You're probably, again, unless you're rich, you probably don't have any money. Yeah? And that may sound strange. You don't have any money. You probably live by barter. You grow something and you swap it with somebody else who's got something you want. So you're going to make this journey on foot. It's going to take you probably weeks rather than days. It's going to be pretty dangerous. But you're determined. There is somebody living in the vicinity of your village, and they're an enlightened being. You want to see them. So off you go on this dangerous journey, travelling across northeast India. And as I say, it's not that easy. You haven't got a map. You haven't got a map. You haven't got a map. How do you get there? So you have to ask people where to go. And, you go to the next village and you say, where's the Buddha? And they look at you and say, what do you mean, where's the Buddha? And you say, well, I've heard, and so on. And they give you directions. They might be correct directions or they might be incorrect directions. So you probably take a few wrong turnings. At night, where do you sleep? Well, if you're lucky, somebody might give you a stable to sleep in, or you might be able to sleep with the oxen, but otherwise you're going to be sleeping outside. And there are snakes, and there are wild animals, and there are thieves, and all sorts of things. It's not much fun, actually. Yeah, it's not much fun. It's not an easy journey. It's a difficult journey. It's a really difficult journey. But eventually, you hear that the Buddha is not far away. He's just 2 villages away. And you're really excited, you're getting really excited. You've been walking for a couple of weeks now and you're getting excited, you're getting near the Buddha and wow, fantastic. Yeah, I'm getting near the Buddha. So you get quite excited. And then you arrive. You arrive at the place where the Buddha is living at that time. Wow, but what a disappointment. You were thinking of something quite special. And what's there? There isn't very much there, actually. It's a clearing in the forest. There are a couple of straw huts. There are monks wandering around, a few monks wandering around. Some of them are eating. There's some other travellers like yourself, a bit scruffy and a bit dirty, like yourself. Wow, it's not that impressive, actually. It's not that impressive. And when I say that there are monks there, when we see monks these days, they've got nice robes and they're nice cleaned and they're laundered and they're ironed and they look pretty smart. We're not talking about that. No, nothing like that. The monks in those times were, their robes were stitched together from bits of rag. Yeah, they were probably dirty, they were discoloured, they weren't dyed this beautiful saffron colour, they were dyed with the mud from a river. Yeah, so they in some ways it's not that impressive. But nevertheless, one of the monks comes up to you and says, "Are you hungry?" And yeah, you're definitely hungry. And the monk arranges for you to have a bit of food, and that's great. So far looks good. And you ask the monk, "Where's the Buddha?" And they said, "Well, the Buddha's actually out on his alms round. He's gone out to beg for food." Oh, the Buddha begs for food. Yeah, the Buddha begs. We all do. Yeah, okay, all right. And is he going to go to talk? Is he going to speak to us? Is he going to give a sermon? You're quite excited now. And the monk says, yeah, perhaps just before it gets dark, at dusk, we'll do a bit of meditation, and the Buddha may speak to us. He may not, but he may speak. So now, wow, you're looking forward to this. This is going to be great. So anyway, you hang around with the other travellers and you swap stories about your adventures on the journey, and you just wait. You just wait, and dusk comes, and the monks gather. They gather in a sort of there's a seat, an empty seat. This is obviously the seat that's going to be for the Buddha. It's not a chair, it's just a sort of, actually it's just a pile of grass and some sort of rags on the ground. And that's obviously where the Buddha's going to sit. The monks are gathered around, waiting for the Buddha. And then you and the other travellers are just behind them. And you wait. And then the Buddha appears. Yeah, the Buddha appears. And immediately you see the Buddha, you realise there's something pretty special about this man. This man is not an ordinary man. There is something about the way he moves, about the way he looks, that's special. You just can't take your eyes off him. So he comes in and he sits on the place made ready for him, and he sits. And he gives a few words to the monks. You can't quite hear them. And they began to meditate. At least you assume that's what it is. You don't know how to meditate. You've never been taught to meditate. You don't really know what meditation is. But you just sit quietly and you wait while they meditate. And you wait, and it seems like they're meditating for a long, long time. But anyway, eventually they start to shuffle around and you realise it's ended. And you can see a bit of movement. Perhaps some of them get up and they sort of stretch their limbs a bit. And then it all kind of settles down. And now you are so excited. You're really excited now. You're going to hear the words of the Buddha. And you're watching. You're sitting and you're watching. And and you carry on watching and waiting. And you think, is he still meditating or is he going to talk? And you wait a bit longer. And you wait a bit longer. And what happens is this. What happens is this. The Buddha leans forward and he holds up a flower. And he just looks. And it's almost as if he's looking at you. And you wait. Presumably he's going to talk about the flower, isn't he? But no. He remains silent. Completely silent. And you're waiting. And you're watching. And you're wanting a teaching. You're wanting to hear the words of the Buddha. But you just see this flower. And you're starting to get a bit anxious and a bit nervous, and you look at your fellow travellers and they look a bit anxious and nervous too, and they're wondering what's going on. And you look at the monks, and a lot of them, they seem a bit agitated, they're wondering what's going on too. You're not sure. Is this man really enlightened or what? But then you look at one of the monks. There's one of the monks, and he's a bit taller than most of the others. He's a bit taller, and he's looking straight at the Buddha. He's looking straight at the Buddha. He's not agitated. His face is completely calm, completely serene. He's looking straight at the Buddha. And as you watch him, this beautiful smile appears on his face. He knows what's going on. He knows what the Buddha wants him to know. And this monk's name is Mahakasyapa. So Mahakasyapa. Of course, he wasn't born Mahakasyapa. Mahakasyapa was the name that he was given by the Buddha. It means great sage. Mahakasyapa was born in what is now northeast India, same region, not quite the same region as the Buddha, but quite close. He was born in the kingdom of Magadha. And when he was born, he was given the name Bipali. So Bipali's parents are actually quite wealthy. They're well-to-do. They're Brahmins. So in the Indian pecking order, they're at the top of the pecking order. They're important people. So, you know, he lives quite a comfortable life. But that's not what he wants. He's quite unusual for a young child. He wants to be an ascetic. He wants to be a wandering ascetic. He wants to travel around India, living in the forest, meditating. That's what he wants. Doing hours and hours of meditating, living on a little bit of food, sleeping where he can. That's what he wants to do. Now, you can imagine that his parents are not very enthusiastic about that. His parents' plans are that he gets married to a nice Brahmin and lives a comfortable life and inherits their land and farms their land and continues the family's tradition. So they put a lot of pressure on Pipali to get married. And finally Pipali agrees. He knows just the person he's prepared to marry, and it's a beautiful woman called Bada. So why does Pipali give in? Pipali gives in because Bada has a secret. She too wants to be an ascetic. So they agree to get married, to keep his parents quiet, but they're not going to consummate their marriage. They're not going to have sex. Okay? So they get married, they go through all the formalities, they get married, and they live together, and they're very happy together. But then Pipali's parents die, he inherits the land, and he's responsible for farming it. He doesn't have to farm it himself, he's got people to do that. But one day he goes out into the fields and they're ploughing. Well, that sounds okay, they're ploughing. They've got a big plough and they've got oxen pulling the plough. But of course, as they plough, it disturbs the earth and turns the earth over. And what happens? All the worms come to the top. And then what happens to the worms? The birds come and eat the worms. And Pipali is quite a sensible, sensitive person. And he goes home to Bada and says, "This is terrible. This is terrible, you know, Pipali. This is terrible, Bada. Do you know what's happened? I went out in there and I saw all these birds and they were eating all the worms and it was horrible. Do you realise that our wealth and our comfort depends on creatures dying?" And Bada says, "Yes, I know. Yes, I know. I know that. It's true. You're right. You're right. I've seen it too. I've seen the birds eating insects. It's horrible. It's horrible. I hate it." So they decide that they give the money to their servants. They free all their servants, and they give the land away, and they leave their village in order to be ascetics. But they don't leave together. They disappear off in opposite directions. Now, strangely enough, they both end up becoming disciples of the Buddha. Mahakasyapa meets the Buddha, goes to refuge to the Buddha ordains him as a monk, and he becomes one of the foremost teachers of the Buddha. In fact, when the Buddha is unable to teach, often Mahakasyapa will teach. So he's pretty impressive teacher. And the fact that the Buddha allows him to teach in his place means that he is in fact an arahant. That is, he's enlightened. He is enlightened too. So Mahakasyapa is enlightened. What happens to Bada? Later on, Bada too discovers the Buddha. She becomes a nun, and again, she becomes one of the foremost teachers. She delights in teaching the younger or the newer nuns. So they're both teachers in the Buddha Sangha. Okay. But what Mahakasyapa is famous for is not being a teacher, but he's famous for his, how can I put it? his ability to apprehend, his ability to see this very mysterious teaching of the Buddha. The teaching where is often called the flower sermon, where the Buddha holds up this flower and remains silent. So, how are we to make sense of this teaching? Mahakasyapa seems to be able to make sense of it and understand it, but how do we do? But then, when I say that, I wonder, perhaps that's the wrong question to ask. When I talk about understanding, usually what we mean is kind of intellectual understanding. We mean reasoning. We mean making sense of something. And of course, human beings do have a very powerful intellect. It's that reasoning ability, it's our intelligence that has been responsible for modern medicine, for science, for technology, for all of the wonderful luxuries that we have in modern life. But of course, intellect isn't everything. Powerful though it is, and highly respected though it is, of course, in modern society, there's more to life than intellect. In fact, I kind of think intellect has its limits. The trouble with intellect and the trouble with reasoning is it's kind of deductive and reductionist in that it's very good for taking things apart and solving complex problems. But it kind of misses out on things. It doesn't give you the whole truth, as it were. In fact, the Buddha himself was very wary of the intellect. He was very wary of the intellect. And he had a whole list of questions called the unanswerables. And these are questions, he said, don't bother asking me these questions because they're too metaphysical, they're too abstract. I'm not going to answer them. It's not that I don't know, but I'm not going to answer them. So don't even bother to answer me. And why did he do that? He did that because he didn't want his disciples to get lost in abstract reasoning. Because that can go on for ages and ages. It can be very enjoyable. It's like solving a very complicated crossword puzzle. But it doesn't actually, like a crossword puzzle, it doesn't actually get you very far. What he wanted was his disciples to practice and to learn the Dharma, but not in an intellectual way. So the Buddha was often described as being metaphysically reluctant. In fact, one of the things he said, and I'll just read this out. He said there are things whose meaning does not rest on words or letters, but is a special transmission outside of the scriptures. Yes? There are things whose meaning does not rest on words or letters, but is a special transmission outside of the scriptures. So here he's saying there are things, there are mysteries, there are things which are deeply meaningful, but you can't put them in words. You can't write them down. You can't make sense of them with the intellect. And traditionally, just after he got enlightened, he wasn't even sure that he could actually teach the Dharma, that he could actually put the Dharma into words. Eventually he does, but it's not an easy job. In Zen has a very strong tradition of this. In Zen masters, Zen teachers use things called koans. So koans are kind of puzzles. So an example of a koan is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Yes? What is the sound of one hand clapping? Or does a dog have a Buddha nature? Does a dog have a Buddha nature? So they sound rather strange questions, And a Zen teacher's disciples are given these puzzles to work out. And of course they try and think them through, and you can't. They don't have an intellectual answer. They don't make sense intellectually. So it forces these Zen students to realize that there is something very powerful that is beyond the intellect. So by blocking the intellect, Zen teachers force their students into other ways of thinking. So, coming back to the flower. So if we come back to the flower, perhaps what we need to do is not think about the flower sermon, not trying to work out the answer to the flower sermon, not to understand the flower sermon, not to use our intellect, but let go of all of that. Let go of the intellect, let go of your reasoning, let go of your cleverness, and just look. Just look at the flower, and look at it for a long time. And if you do that, if you let go of the intellect, you may come to a deeper wisdom, and you may see some of the mystery and the magic that there is in a flower or a tree or anything really. So just look, just be quiet, and perhaps meditate. So Jayaka led that beautiful meditation earlier, and perhaps we could meditate on a flower. Just be with the flower, be present with the flower, enjoy the flower, and let go of the fact that it's even a flower. Just be with it. Okay, so we're just going to have a short break now. It's going to be about 5 or 6 minutes, and that'll give you, it won't give you a lot of time maybe to make a very quick cup of tea or go to the loo or something like that, and then we'll be back it'll be about 8 o'clock. All right. And I've got okay, and I need to do something.
Technical problems there, sorry about that. This is what it's like being live. It's great, I like it though. So, what a wonderful story there from Priyavajra. Before we give some time to that, before we take your questions, what we'll do is we'll just settle down again, just to use the space, just to relax a bit. So we're going to do another short meditation. And we're just going to follow the breath again for a little bit. I'll just lead us in that. So do settle down again. Make sure you're comfortable on your chair or on your cushions, or however you want to sit. We won't be sitting for very long. Just want us to arrive back for a few minutes. So when you're ready, just closing your eyes. And again, just taking a few deeper breaths so that we can engage with the body. It's as if the breath is a kind of an interface with the body. And just noticing how you are, so maybe you can compare to how you was earlier when we meditated, how your body feels now. And just consciously relaxing. So we all have our areas in our body where we tense up. So the common areas are the shoulders and the face and the eyes, thighs. So when we deliberately relax the body, we give the emotions a chance to also relax as well. So just following the breath. Perhaps you can notice the tension in the body pushing against the breath. So when the body is completely relaxed, it's as if the breath breezes through the body. It's a bit like being in a stuffy room and you open the door and the breeze blows through and really refreshes and energizes the body. So just imagining what that feels like. And perhaps let's just focus on the breath around the heart area. So we're bringing a kindly awareness to the heart area. So being curious, there's no need to push or grasp after any particular experience. That will only make us tense up. in keeping with our story this evening, maybe we can just imagine our heart as a flower, a lotus flower. So what colour would your lotus flower be? And if you want to, you can imagine the lotus in your heart, gently opening, slowly. So using our imagination and our curiosity and our attentiveness, and seeing if you have any emotional responses to imagining the lotus of your heart. So does the flower put you at ease, or do you tense up? Or is there clarity? That seemed to be what Mahakasyapa experienced. Or is there confusion? just beginning to relax your concentration, your efforts. And when you're ready, opening your eyes. So, this evening we've been having our usual storytelling evening. If you didn't tune in earlier, Priyavajra has told the story of Mahakasyapa. We've done some meditation, and now we're going to ask Priyavajra to join me again. We're going to be in camera shot together, so we might need to arrange things. We're live here in East London, and this is an opportunity for you to ask questions about the story. A very well told story. I love the build up to the anticipation of the person trying to find the Buddha and want to get a teaching, and then there's just this flower held up, and it's a very unusual teaching actually, and I think you might want to say some more. Do you want to say a little bit more about that? Or?
Yeah. No, it is a very unusual teaching. I mean, it's the only teaching that I know of from the Buddha that's anything like that. I might just say a little bit. I mean, I think what I was trying to talk about at the end of my talk was the limitations of the intellect. But then, if you haven't got the intellect, what have you got? So the intellect is what we reason with. It's very powerful at solving problems. It's kind of deductive. It's able to handle abstractions and so on and so forth. But we do have another way of knowing, as it were, and that is the intuition. And I think intuition is very important in Buddhism. Intuition is not analytical. It's kind of much more organic. It's much more holistic, and it is this other way of perceiving things. And I mean, if we go back to the flower, I mean, if we wanted to understand the flower intellectually, we could say, well, it's a lily. It's got so many petals. It's this family and it's this colour, and we could sort of take it to bits. But intuition doesn't do that. Intuition doesn't, in fact, use any words or concepts. It just kind of knows. And in a sense, one of the ideas in Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism, is if you really know a thing without words, then you know its reality. That you can only actually perceive the reality of a thing when you let go of all those concepts and words and ideas and thoughts. So that's quite an idea. So intuition. Perhaps we need to develop intuition.
That was good.
So have we got any questions?
We've got no questions. Okay. Or maybe there's some more questions. We've got some thank yous.
Great.
So that's good.
Okay.
Great storytelling. Felt as if we were here. Lots of gratitude.
Okay. That's good.
Shall I ask some questions?
Oh, you ask some questions, Sharika. Please do.
Well, I thought it was interesting that what sort of initiated the search.
Yes.
For the ploughing of the field and the
Yes.
There were two ascetics.
Yes.
Sort of like in the closet.
Yes.
And doing what they did, and then this obviously, you said what was his name then? Papali,
Yes.
so that he was very sensitive.
Yes.
And he obviously had this sensitivity to
Yes.
living beings, and that initiated the search. Is there anything else to say about that? Or?
Yes. Yes, it's quite interesting. It seems to have sparked off something in both of them. It's. I think it's the contrast. I think you get it in the story of the Buddha too. The contrast between, they're both living comfortably. The Buddha had a very comfortable early life. Pipali and Bada have a very comfortable life. They've got wealthy parents and so on. But they realise that comfortable and wealthy life comes at a cost. And it comes at a cost, for Pipali, is the cost of the animals that have to die in order that he can grow, that the farm can make money. And, in a sense, that's there for the Buddha too, I think, because he leaves a wealthy family, doesn't he, and goes out into the jungle. Had you got any thoughts about it?
Well, I think it sounds like a familiar story in a way.
Right.
People come along to the Buddhist centre and telling their life stories, and that their work kind of gets in the way of them sort of being bigger people or growing.
Yes.
And in a way, that's a very simple way of putting it in that story. I was just thinking at the moment with people in lockdown, various stages around the world at the moment. I'm hearing lots of people have been reflecting on their lives and people leaving their jobs. I'm surprised I'm hearing people leaving their jobs while they're furloughed, because I don't know if they're likely to get jobs for a while again. Do you see what I mean? So I think it's a familiar common theme. That people reflecting on their work and leaving behind what they've been doing for quite some time in their lives.
So it's having a sort of bigger perspective and realising that we can live well, but there's a cost there.
Have we got a question?
Yeah, it ties in with a question from Charlie, who first of all he says thanks for the wonderful talk, and then he asks if you think there's a link between renunciation and the kind of deep knowing that you talked about.
It's a very good question. Is there a connection between renunciation and that knowing? I mean, you might have some ideas on this, but the first thing that strikes me is when you lead a renunciant life, it means leading a much simpler life. It means letting go of all of the complications like money, like having to earn a living, storing food and all of these things you're letting go of. So you're much closer, as it were. You're much closer to nature, aren't you? You're much closer to nature. You're much closer to something basic and fundamental. So you probably, just because of that, you use your intuition comes to the fore, rather than you don't have so many intellectual problems to solve. You're probably more dependent on just being close to nature and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, last week or the week before, I was on a solitary retreat, and even though I work at the centre here, I work at the Buddhist centre, I meditate every day. From some people's perspectives, it's probably a fairly simple life, although sometimes it feels complicated for me on my side. But I noticed it when I go on solitary retreat, which is a kind of if you like, it's a renunciant kind of thing to do, to go off, be on one's own, cook for oneself, all those sorts of things, meditate more. But I do find in that state I am able to meditate more deeply. I take study material with me, Dharma study material with me, and I feel like I can really drill down into that material much more than when I'm in London, even though I live a fairly straightforward life in London. And I do feel like I can understand things more fully, and it is more of an emotional understanding, more of an intuitive thing, as opposed to, oh no, I can remember this and that and that and that, like as opposed more of an intellectual thing. It's definitely more of an emotional thing, more satisfied. There's a whole lot of experience that goes along with that, feeling satisfied and happy. And it's more of a holistic kind of understanding.
It is very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, I've noticed myself when I've been on retreat, at the beginning of the retreat, most retreatants are kind of checking out the bookshop, or they brought a novel with them and they're reading their novel, and they're sort of quite engaged with reading and doing and things like that. But as the retreat progresses, they move into this state where they're doing a lot less and being a lot more. They're quite happy just to sit and look out the window, or just go for a walk on their own and just be quiet. And they sort of want that.
We got another question?
Yeah,
Good.
quite a few now. From one of them is from Oliver. He's asking how to balance intellect and intuition in Buddhism, or from a Buddhist perspective.
I think that's a good question. I think it is very important that in a sense that these two things are in balance. So I think that's very. I mean, intellect without intuition loses the magic of things. It loses that deep mystery that the world has. I mean, a flower has enormous mystery to it, enormous depth once you let go of your reductionist thinking. But intuition on its own is a bit tricky too, because I find it quite hard to tell the difference between my intuition and my kind of views and my prejudices and my attitudes. I think something's like this, and it's not intellectual, but is that intuition or is that just prejudice? I think we have to be very careful. So we need the intellect. The intellect is a wonderful sort of check on the intuition going a bit astray. It stops us being gullible in a sense and taken in by people. It makes us just check out what we're thinking. Does this make sense? Is this true? Is this really true? Or is this just something I've kind of picked up? So I think we need both. But I think that's the balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably education does focus more on the intellect, modern education. Yeah. And I know for me, what I think helped me sort of connect with what we're calling intuition, the imagination, was kind of stories.
Yes, stories. Yes.
Stories.
Yes.
Doing rituals.
Yes.
Doing rituals, particularly on retreat. Doing rituals to mark things.
Yes.
Significant things like deaths. I know we do that anyway, but
absolutely.
The beginning and endings of retreats, or the beginning and endings of things.
Yes.
And in the context of those retreats, imagining something greater than me, not just about me, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
But I have felt that's really helped me.
Yes.
But I absolutely agree with you. You need both. You do need to be able to think clearly and move logically.
Yes.
And you need to have this wonder as well, don't you?
Yeah.
As I'm speaking for myself, we need this sense of wonder as well, and that we need to be able to drop all those concepts that you were talking about, that the flower is, because it's not really a flower.
No,
that's just something we've kind of imagined in a way. Yeah.
We've added in there.
So I think we've probably come to the end of the evening almost.
Yes.
That was good timing. That was our storytelling evening again. I'm assuming there's probably one next week, but I just really wanted to thank Priyavajra again for really taking us on a bit of a journey. I really did get drawn into the story, particularly, as I said, this sense of anticipation of wanting to get my intellect fed. And then there's just the flower, but then there's the wonder of the flower, and we've explored that. So I just really want to thank you again for that.
Yeah.
And it's really good. Really appreciated being here with you this evening, Priyavajra. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chaitra, and thank you for your lovely, wonderful meditations too. Really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So, as I said, we'll be here next week. Someone will be here. I'm sure we'll be here tomorrow night. I'm not sure of the LBC programme at the moment. Do forgive me. There's lots going on and it's changing fast, what we're doing at the centre. But before I go, I just want to we'll make an appeal, really. As you know, lots of businesses, lots of charities have been finding it difficult to run financially over these last few months, and we've had some grants from the government, and people have been helping us. Those grants have been petering out, and we need to make sure that we can sustain what we do at the centre. And we've just reopened the centre from Monday to Saturday. We're running from midday to 3 p.m. Just open for a few days, for a few hours in the middle of the day. And obviously we want to open more. We are gradually opening up again because we think we've really got something to offer people. And obviously we need to be financially secure to be able to do that. So I'm really asking you, if you've enjoyed the evening, if you've enjoyed what we've done this evening, we volunteer. We've come here just to really enjoy ourselves, really. But if you've enjoyed the evening, please do think about giving some money. No amount is too small, and obviously large amounts are good. And I believe there'll be a tab at the bottom of the page where you can just click on. That makes life easy. You haven't got to go very far to do that. So if you could please give something to the LBC, that would be very much appreciated. We're a charity. We haven't got shareholders. All the money goes to the good, really. So thanks very much in advance for that. And lastly, what we'll do is we transfer our merits, which is something that we do traditionally at the end of an evening. And transferring merits is very much to do with any good that's come of the evening. What we do is we just let that go. We not only let it go, actually we give it to other people so that they can enjoy the merit, so that they can benefit from what we've been doing this evening and what we do more broadly at the centre. So I'm going to do this in call and response, I think. So you can all join in at home. And this is a time where I know we've meditated together this evening, that's great, but now we can actually join in verbally by doing this in call and response. So I'll say a line and you can say a line back, and then we'll finish there. And as I said, we're finishing ritually, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier on, having a tidy end to the evening. So when you're ready, just sitting comfortably, however you are. So transference of merit and self-surrender in call and response. May the merit gained.
May
the merit gained.
In my acting thus.
In my acting thus.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences.
My personality throughout my existences.
My possessions.
My possessions.
And my merit in all three ways.
And my merit in all three ways.
I give up without regard to myself.
I give up without regard to myself.
For the benefit of all beings.
For the benefit of all beings.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Just as the earth and other elements.
Are serviceable in many ways.
Are serviceable in many ways.
To the infinite number of beings.
To the infinite number of beings.
Inhabiting limitless space.
Inhabiting limitless space.
So may I become.
So may I become.
That which maintains all beings.
That which maintains all beings.
Situated throughout space.
Situated throughout space.
So long as all have not attained.
So long as all have not attained.
To peace.
To peace.